we are with some more front of the class real stories from real educators today. Special guest, we have Warra Bonney. And Warra, can you give us a little background of your educational experience, what you've done so far, where you've taught, and what you're doing right now?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Spencer. I'm so glad to be here on your podcast. I love everything you friends are doing. I went to the University of the Cumberlands in Kentucky and studied there with an undergrad in elementary education. I was also on the women's wrestling team there. And then after school, I got my master's degree immediately as a reading specialist and started working in Virginia, where I'm from. I taught for almost 10 years in Fairfax County Public Schools in Northern Virginia. I taught first and second grade there for a long time and finished the last 3 years of my time there as a reading specialist at Falls Church High School and the head wrestling coach there. And then we recently, I say recently, but in the last four years, we've been here in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, for 4 years with the State Department. And I worked at the American International School of Riyadh for a year, and I've been doing some different educational consulting, both with the embassy and both with Connected Consulting. And then for the last 2 years, I have done my dream job, which is teaching for Moreland University in the Teach Now Graduate School of Education. So I've been an adjunct faculty instructor there and have had a really great time.
Well, thank you for the rich array of things we could dig into on that incredible introduction. But maybe the first thing I'd be most curious to explore is 10 years teaching public school in Virginia, then 1 year teaching at the American school in Saudi Arabia. Can you just help folks understand who maybe have never been there, have no understanding of what it's like to live, work, teach, et cetera, in Saudi Arabia? Like, what are some of the biggest maybe comparisons to teaching in America and teaching there that you saw? What is actually similarities? What are the biggest differences? How do they approach education versus how we approach it? Feel free to jump in however you'd like to, but just at its most simple, like what are the similarities and the differences between teaching in Virginia and Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think that where you might be getting at is that a lot of people, a lot of listeners might not even know what it's kind of like in Saudi. I know when we got ready to move here, I think that some of my family, their vision was, wow, you're going to be, you know, in a world that you don't really understand or know. And one of the really great things about living in Northern Virginia is that you are exposed to a variety of different people, different cultures. And so, for the longest time in Fairfax County, my family had this amazing opportunity to get really close to a Muslim family, Pakistani Americans. And so, we were very immersed in the Muslim culture. And so, when we came to Saudi, it wasn't a big shock. Saudi Arabia is a predominantly, it's a Muslim culture. They have Mecca here. And we have just been in this amazing setting that embraces education, that embraces women, that is really growing and open. The school that my kids have had the privilege to go to, and I had the privilege to teach at, is implementing the latest and greatest in education and global citizenship and in bringing and facilitating this really great culture together. Um, the driving's crazy here. I mean, I think that that's the only thing that I would say is like really different. I've had to learn to be a little bit more aggressive when driving. But otherwise, you have all the luxuries that you would have in Northern Virginia. You have them here. You have a really great society that embraces and loves kids and wants to support them in their growth. And so it has been it has been a really great experience as far as that. goes, and also in the same understanding that internationally, there are going to be huge differences in the resources available as far as like special ed and different programs that maybe have been implemented in America, and they're still working on bringing those kinds of programs to different places. And this is something I see and hear about from the teachers I teach internationally, and things that I've seen here. So they're still growing their multi-tier system of support, if that makes sense.
Yep. And what do you see as similarities, differences, maybe in two things? One is maybe the I don't know the cultural I don't know respect. Maybe how teachers are thought of there versus in America. What do you see? And then well, I'd love to explore that. And then I'd love to explore. I'm sure you've had the question with your kids of, well, hey, what do you like about school here more than you did back home or less more than you did back home? So I'd love to explore those two things a little bit. So can you share a little bit more about kind of how teachers are thought of there versus kind of back home? And let's peer through the lens of your children now taking classes there for 4 years. What do they like? What do they not like? What are the biggest differences that they are going to miss or that they miss back home? So feel free to jump into either one of those, whichever one seems more fun.
Absolutely. So I think the first part of your question, respect and to see how is that balanced with, um, it varies, and I think people's experience varies. I had a really great experience teaching as far as my students respected me. I had a really great foundation. I'm sure you've talked to some teachers in Fairfax County, and you know that they do extensive training with their teachers. So I feel like I came with a really good set of um, tools, to implement no matter what setting I was in. And so I always felt respect from my students, my athletes. I coached at the American school. I coached their very first ever wrestling team. I was really nervous that there wasn't going to be a respect thing there because I'm a woman and they were the boys, and I was like, oh, are they really going to accept me? And they do. The athletes, the students, the respect is there. um, Saudis approach education and in the same way that we do, is that it's an opportunity for growth, learning, and to reach into and make a global impact. So we definitely see that. I think my kids have been given a lot of opportunities here that we might not see them in public school education.
Oh,
We have
can you
been
share more about
given
that? What's an example?
For example, a lot of the international schools, they'll implement Week Without Walls. So this is a program where you may go to depending on what grade level you are, for that week, you physically go to another country, or you go into a service project, or you go and because international schools are um, private schools. They're not the same as a public school as far as the funding and whatnot. So they have been given some opportunities to do some very extensive projects or to go to different cultures and explore and support. I think that they're going to kind of miss that. However, um, again, they are growing their programs here. And we're in a teacher epidemic. Like we don't have enough teachers to fill positions in America. We don't have enough teachers to fill positions all over the world. And so, thank goodness for Moreland's, Graduate School of Education. We're helping to bring teachers all over the world and support them virtually and getting them their certification. But there are things that my kids are not getting that they need. And that kind of goes back to that multi-tier system of support. My son has dyslexia. If in a perfect world, I would have him, working with, a reading specialist. He would be getting direct support, maybe some, Orson Gillingham. He would be getting, some really sound support in that way, with research based um, programs. But, it's, again, hard to have a multi tier system of support in a private school when it's not required. It's not required to support students with those types of needs. And but that being said, they realize that, okay, whether we like it or not, all of our students have varying needs, and we need to put the system into place. But it takes time.
Yep, got it. And one more quick question on kind of this teaching in a foreign country, and then I'd love to get back to more you and your story. But if someone's out there listening to this and they're like, I never even thought about teaching abroad, and there's a need, like just like there is in America for more teachers abroad, um, what might you say to the biggest pros and cons of someone who might just have heard this, never thought about this? I want to learn more about teaching abroad, maybe in Saudi Arabia, maybe in another country. Um, how might you describe to them why it's a good idea, or for whom it might be a good idea, and why it's maybe tougher than you think or not a good idea, or who it might not be great for? So can you share a little bit more about that? If someone's considering like learning more about this, how might you describe the great things about teaching abroad, and maybe some of the things that aren't aren't so great? So can you share a little bit on that for someone who's curious to learn more?
Well, for sure. I think that if you want to go see the world, oh wow, that's just the perfect way to do it. I know a lot of my expat friends here who are teachers who are on. I'm in a different situation. I'm a diplomat, and we were stationed here, and then I just happened to be a teacher, and I could go to local school and offer my services or whatnot. But people who want to get into a program and to go and, sign contracts and go live in these places, I think it's a great opportunity. Places like Riyadh and Jeddah and Dhahran, they have all sorts of amazing schools. I know Riyadh is building 40 new schools in their Vision 30 program. And they are and they are really boosting education and whatnot. I think that, and understanding that it can be difficult at times. Again, the resources may be very different than what you might see in the United States in various places. And
And if you don't
so,
mind, what's an example of a resource maybe that is a standard maybe for you in Fairfax County that maybe you showed up here like, oh, we don't have that. Oh, interesting. What any examples come to mind?
absolutely. I think, again, it goes back to that multi tier system of support. And so, in your classroom, you may have this expectation or this understanding that you're going to have school counselor support, you're going to have SPED support, you're going to have gifted and talented programs. You're going to have this support that's helping differentiate on those different ends of the spectrum, and they're just not going to exist. I know Fairfax County Public Schools has this really great system of giving you the support you need and the students need, and being able to evaluate and identify. Where right now, in some places, everyone is in that classroom and you're responsible for everyone. And it can be very difficult to meet everyone's needs when you have maybe nonverbal students in your second grade class where you're like, wow, this friend needs some ABA support. This friend needs some speech support. This friend needs, some different components that just are not there. And I think that can leave educators. It definitely left me with this sense of you're never going to be enough, and that can be hard. And I wasn't prepared for that, to be honest. So and I'm a pretty prepared person. So, I think that I just think mentally that I was just not ready to take on all of that emotion that comes with not being enough, and not having those
Mhm.
supports that will help these friends be successful. So just kind of know where you're going,
Understood.
know the culture.
Well, Yes, that's a big deal, right? If you're considering going to teach in a foreign country, you should know a little bit about how that country operates, their norms
Yeah.
and customs and things like that. I'd love to shift back over to a little bit more about you. I mean, you mentioned going to college. You were already, it seemed like, dead set on becoming a teacher, with what you chose to study. So what drew you to this profession in the first place? Like, is this something like I've heard some people say like, oh, I was teaching my stuffed animals on the blackboard when I was 6. Like, is this something that you were always drawn to, or what drew you into wanting to study education and become a teacher in the first place?
Yes. Yes. I think, yeah, exactly. I always wanted to be a teacher. I grew up in Southern Virginia, Smithfield. That's where they make the ham. I'm the oldest girl uh, of 9 kids, so there's 7 boys and 2 girls in our family. And it was when you have that many kids, it's a lot to feed, a lot to support. And my parents, they worked very hard. They worked night shift and triples and doubles, and so a lot of times I had this responsibility, and times were tough. We grew up very poor, and so school was my safe place. It was a place where I could be myself. I wasn't responsible for kids. I can go and um, be with these teachers that cared about me, and I we would get free and reduced lunch. I would get to have a meal, and so school had always been my place that I felt safe and happy. So I knew I wanted to be that person that could offer that for others. So yeah,
Awesome.
that was
And then you did it for 10 straight years, right? Once you started, before kind of moving for your husband's role. What kept you in it for so long? Ten years. It's easy to get into something for reasons like you describe. Sometimes you face the reality like, oh, maybe this is what I thought. So what kept you in it for 10 years? Like, what kept you going and kept you fresh and wanting to come back every day?
well, I mean, I think every teacher would say, like, the students. I think, that's a huge part. Elementary school, you see the difference that you're making immediately. The routine and the support and the growth. As a first and second grade teacher, you're teaching them how to read, and that is something I struggled with as a student. I was in reading recovery. I have ADHD and dyslexia, and this was not diagnosed until I was older. And so there was a lot of need that I had, and it was just kind of teachers just kind of supported me and whatnot. And so I think it's always if I can do that, and when I am doing that with students, it keeps me going. It's not always easy. I know you've interviewed lots of teachers, and you've heard it. I never sugarcoat it for the teachers I teach. It's not easy. It's not going to always be easy. And when it did get hard for me, when I was like, oh wow, I have my own small children at home. I only have so much patience and love, and if I spend it all
Yeah.
day on my students, how can I come home? I have none left, and so I shifted to high
Yeah,
school
how'd you
then
approach that?
because
That's a tough balance to try to I only have so much in the tank. Like, how do I spend it in a way that helps my students and helps my family?
well, I'd always promised myself if I ever became that teacher that's bitter and upset and just doesn't have that love anymore, I need to get out. I'm not going to stay in, and that's when I shifted to high school because, yeah, you have to know yourself, and thank goodness as I've gotten older and have had the privilege to, you're not in fight or flight anymore. I shifted into, and I became more self aware of how I'm feeling, and I just knew I don't want to be that teacher that is ever in that mindset that wow, my passion is dying out or whatnot. And that was because I just again, you have many different hats and different roles that you're taking on, and I needed to focus on my kids. And so I shifted up to high school, and that's a whole different
Yeah,
beast,
so can
but
can
it's
you can you
not.
share a little bit more about that shift and what drove that, and why did you choose high school as the way that you thought would then deliver more energy for your family? How many years in were you teaching? Can you give us a little bit of that fun fact sheet of, you made this transition
Yeah.
from elementary school to high school, and now we're just, 7-year-olds to maybe 16-year. That's a big difference. Like, can you help shed a little bit more light on how you arrived at that decision and how it worked out for you?
Oh, for sure. So I think that my first experience of working with high school came from I was coaching wrestling. So I was coaching this youth team, and I was working with middle school, upper middle school students, and I was like, wow, this isn't so bad. And you really get to see the growth really quickly through coaching. I know you talk about football sometimes in your podcast, so you're sports oriented. You know how closely seeing that growth in your athletes and seeing that happen. So then I started to as an assistant coach at Falls Church High School, and I loved it. I loved every second of it. I loved the students. You could be real with them. You could have sarcasm. You could build these relationships with them and support them, and at the same time, really see them and say, "Wow, this is somebody's kid. Still, this is a kid," and you're helping shape their growth, their reality, and so. Um, and again, at the same time, I had just had my son. So I had two kids at home, and I needed to make sure that I was giving my love and patience, to everyone. And with high school, you don't need to be on all the time, right? I feel like
Yeah,
teaching, yeah, it's like a show.
yeah.
You're acting all day and energetic and everything. But high school, you don't have to be, hey friends, let's come to the
Yeah.
carpet, and so you could just be a
You can
little
save
less
that
like
energy at
that.
home. Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
It
yes.
just reminds me of, like, yeah, I've got a little 2.5-year-old here, and like something when my mom will come to visit, like, and he does something and she laughs, and that makes him want to do it again, right? And it might still be funny 3 or 4 more times, right? And then she's still now acting like it's funny on the 12th time. He still loves it. She's acting. And it takes energy to kind of do that. And when you're in the classroom with that type of energy and at home with that type of energy, it can drain that nonstop happy, smiley version of yourself. Whereas this is a really
Exactly.
interesting point you're making is once my kids needed that version of me, like, I could use a different type of energy for the high school kids because they don't need that kind of, "Let's go to the
Yeah,
carpet and sing it." They don't need that. They need a different kind of energy. So then almost you got an equilibrium for yourself of where you're using certain things instead of using up all of energy A and none of energy B. Now you can use a little bit of both. It's actually a really interesting way of thinking about it that I hadn't thought of before.
exactly. And again, I'm not sugarcoating it. There are other things, as a head coach, I was dealing with, kids bullying online, and you have kids running away from home. You have a whole, you're dealing now with kids having sex and
Yeah.
all of this stuff, and so you're like, it's a whole different beast, but it's not being on all the time. You can be real with them,
Yeah.
and so I really, really felt that impact. I taught remedial reading, and then I supported the high school in so you have your seniors and your juniors that haven't passed that state test yet. So they've failed the, Virginia SOL, and now they're going into their senior year, and that's an indicator to graduate. And so I was supporting this list of 100 students that needed to pass these exams, and then also teaching freshmen remedial reading. You have these kids who have failed their 8th grade as well, and now they're coming in and they have to be
Mm.
in a reading class, which can be really hard for those kids. And so you do have to be on a little bit, but it's one class a day or two classes a day. It's not, and then you get to go do remedial work with students in small groups. Uh, but I did still have to do a little bit of acting, like with my kids, that they would be like, I had to hype those books. I can't read all of the graphic novels for for young adults. So I had to be like, "Oh yeah, it was so cool. Did you read the third Amulet series book?" And you really had to still fake it till you make it a little bit, but
Yeah.
um, but it worked, and it was such a great experience.
Awesome. Well, I'd love to shift a little bit and kind of highlight some just key moments throughout this, 10 plus year career that you've had. And I'd love to start with just, proudest, coolest, most enjoyable, something that any moments in your teaching career that make you look back now, or you think you'll probably look back on when you're 60, 70, 80, like that was a really cool, proud moment. I can't believe that student did this or that class accomplished this. Does anything stand out to you that's just something that still kind of makes you smile because it's such a proud or enjoyable or cool moment in your teaching career?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that there's so many, but I really have, again, with that remedial reading class in high school, I have a couple moments there that I didn't expect. You don't sometimes you don't really expect a lot from freshman boys, who are stuck in this reading class. And one day, this kid Mardocchio, he comes in and he brings me this like I don't know how to say it in Spanish, maybe like panque or like a pound cake, and
Okay.
and he gives it to me, and I was like, I knew Mardukio's dad was a baker. He mentioned that because I had told him, oh, when I go to Saudi, I'm not going to teach. I'm gonna be a baker. I'm gonna bake for the
Mm,
embassy and make cookies and stuff. And he had heard that, and so he brings in this pound cake, and I'm like, oh wow, like you got your dad to make this and everything. He's like, no. He said, so I got up at 3 a.m. this morning with my dad and went into the bakery, and I baked this for you. And
wow.
I mean, I don't want to cry right now, but I'll never ever forget that. I'm teaching kids who feel like they have failed already so much, and to like, I mean, sorry, but to like really have built this relationship with this kid so much that he would do that. He would get up at 3 a.m. and have to ask his dad, "Oh, can I make one of these for my teacher?" And to bring it in. And then also it was amazing. It tasted great. I'm a
It was
sucker for
also a great
sweet.
cake. Yes.
Yes, yes. So I'll never forget that. And that was so COVID happened. That was my class. We sat there on in that day in March thinking, oh yeah, we might not come to school next week. Like, yes, we're gonna get some time off. And then COVID. And
Yeah.
so I'm so glad I had built those relationships with those kids through those years that I could, shift to virtual and still support and make a difference with them. So I'll never forget that with Mardocchio, and of course there are other friends. I've had kids who have lost their family, like their fathers or their mothers in school, and just them coming back and saying like you've helped me, you helped me through that really hard time. And
Yeah.
um so really moments like that are just they stand out as a proud moment to me.
Yeah. Super impactful. I mean, anything that can kind of bring about tears of joy in the moment and then also 5 years later, that's a pretty impactful, powerful moment right there. So thank you for sharing that. Um, and maybe on a I mean, not that that's not happy, that is a very happy moment, tears of joy, but also on a maybe fun, crazy, wild stories. Um, anything that strikes you as just I still can't believe that actually happened, or that student said that. Any wild, crazy, unbelievable. I still can't
Oh
believe that
yeah.
happened stories over your 10 years in the classroom that maybe you're able to share.
Yes, yes. So none of those are classified. So so I feel like I've had like the worst luck when it comes to like winter celebration time. So before I went to Fairfax County Schools, I had moved back from college. I was still in Southern Virginia, so I taught 2 years in at Carsville Elementary School in Isle of Wight County, where Smithfield is. So during the winter celebration, this kiddo, Blake Colson, I guess he took his mom's sewing scissors to school, and he's spinning them around, and he puts his finger down, and he cuts off the tip of his finger inside of this
Oh,
where we're having, there's a movie playing, there's kids are doing crafts, and he is squirting blood out of
scream.
his
Oh,
finger. And I am, this is where you learn whether you're like fight or flight and like what you
yeah.
do. So I immediately pull his shirt off and bundle it on his finger, and we go running down the hallway to the nurse. And I scream into another person's classroom, "Watch my class!" And I like run, and thank God, like everything was fine. But like fingers bleed like a lot,
Yeah.
so it was so crazy. But in another winter celebration, you have different friends and different needs, and I had this particular kiddo, and she gets overstimulated a lot, and she would have these really big outbursts, and so again we have like a craft going on, we have different parents in the room, and something's not going the student's way, and so she's getting really upset and everything, and so I call for backup, right? So tell teacher to get ask for help when you need help. So I call for backup. Backup came. Principal came into the room right at the moment that another friend reaches into his backpack and pulls out a bottle of wine and says, "Look what I got you for Christmas!" And as this friend's screaming, as this event's going on, there's music playing, and I was like, "This is the day I get fired." But my principal just rolled with it. Like, "Matthew, put that away, under Miss Bonnie's desk." And,
Why?
and help that friend, get calm, and I was like, just n and, like, I don't wanna celebrate winter anymore. So but,
Oh,
those were
wow.
some crazy moments, but it's always a fun time with kiddos.
I mean, there's never ending something could go really amazingly and something could go really wrong almost at any given potential moment. Um, and it's I don't know. I guess it's a good maybe reminder uh, for folks of like I hope no one listening ever has to listen and watch to a child who brings scissors in and accidentally cuts off the tip of their finger. I hope you never have to deal with that or anything like it. But if you
I hope
do,
not.
it sounds like you can emulate what you just heard here, right? Of like,
Yeah,
we got to wrap it.
elevate,
We can use the
wrap it
shirt,
up.
get to the nurse, find someone else to watch the class. Like like very calmly, if you're ever in that situation, maybe you ask yourself, what might I do? You can just go re listen to this because that's a pretty good example to follow. So thank you for sharing that. Um, over this 10 plus year career in education that you've had and coaching and all the things that you've done, elementary school, high school, etc., are there any things you've consistently done in your teaching career that just seem to really work well for you, and maybe you're surprised other people don't do that thing or those things more frequently because they just seem to work? Anything stand out to you?
I think that relationship building is really, really important. And it surprises me sometimes when people don't take that opportunity, that time to really get to know your students. And when they know you care about them, you genuinely care about them, you do the follow up with them. They said, "Oh, yeah, I'm doing this sport," and you follow up the next day or the next week, or you don't show a general interest in them. How do you expect them to buy into what you would like to teach them, and have them come to you when they need your help or support? You know, as I said, as I'm teaching these teachers at Moreland, and I'm supporting them going out into the world globally, all over the world, I say you really have to consider that you could be the safe person for these students. You could be the best thing that's going on in their life. And so, be sure to be present and be genuine, and be there for them. And so it really surprises me when people are not taking that time to build relationships with their students. So, it's worked for
Yeah,
me.
there's that old
I
adage.
exactly,
Yeah, so there's
exactly.
that old adage that goes a long way of people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Um, and that goes a long way, especially with kids. I feel like kids are great at snuffing out fake. Um, and
Uh,
so
High
until
schoolers,
you show that
yes.
you care, yeah,
Yes,
yeah. Awesome.
100%.
That's great advice. A couple more more quick hitter, rapid fire type questions as we get closer to wrapping up. Especially these helpful to younger teachers, new teachers, people who are maybe about to enter the classroom. But you mentioned you're preparing teachers all over the world. What's just the number one piece of advice that you give to someone who is maybe in their first year in the classroom, or maybe they're about to be a new teacher and they're about to experience their first year in the classroom? What's just the number one thing that comes up time and time again that you consistently tell people?
I think I tell teachers. I teach module 4, and so we're doing a lot of classroom management, a lot of building relationships, and I tell them, know yourself, get to know yourself too, know when you need to ask for help. I think that that's a huge thing that I would have told myself earlier. Find that mentor, um, find the positive people in school. People with passion. If there's a lot of negativity around you, it's going to seep into who you are and your passion for education. And then ask for help. Have boundaries too. Work is work, and home is home. Don't take things too personally. Um, Kids' behavior, when they are having these different types of behavior, uh, don't take it too personally for yourself. Just know that there's a reason. Get curious. Why? Why are these behaviors happening, and what can I do to support? I think that that is, something I wish even go beyond me as a teacher, but back into my own childhood. And I wish that some of my own educators, my own teachers would understand and understood the behaviors I was having. I was always the really talkative friend in class, or why didn't I bring my homework in? Well, because I'm raising kids. I'm raising kids at home. I'm an adult at home, or we don't have electricity or food right now, or there's domestic violence going on, or there's this or that. And you have to understand that, you know, um, I'm not, I'm not wanting to show up. Yes, I would love to have typed this paper up, but I can't. And no one got curious. I went through school, middle school, high school in these situations, in this fight or flight, and no one knew. And so it was really difficult to kind of see that as an educator now, and as somebody educating teachers. I tell them this. I'm very candid with them. I say I was a kid that they missed. Let's look for
Yeah.
those signs. And so that's so important. And then one last thing. I know I talk a lot, but it's not just those kids who have those situations at home. I'm in Saudi Arabia right now. I think a lot of people think, "Oh, they're really rich kids." Yeah, there's some kids who have more than you could ever imagine here. But you can't buy love. You can't buy some of these things. Your kids who have privilege and are exposed, have money, they are just as vulnerable for those types of things to happen. You have more access to drugs and alcohol. You have more access to things that maybe you wouldn't have. Their parents can be just as absent in that home as they could be in a home where they're working triple shifts. And so, there's I try to put that out there for everyone, to understand that these behaviors, whether they are from privilege or not, um, there's a reason. Get curious.
Yeah, it's almost like you're like becoming the teacher you wish you had. So that could be um, that could be some of that could be some of that advice to share with these prospective teachers of like, do you remember the best teacher you ever had? Maybe you can't copy their style because it's not your personality. Again, you got to know yourself. But in some regard, be the teacher that you most emulated or that you wish you had if you didn't have that person? Like that's just if you do that, you're probably gonna get a lot of things right. Um, Awesome.
100%.
Thank you for sharing that. To you, what is the number one, just single best thing about this profession, education? Like, what's just the absolute best thing about it? Like, what do you rave about being in the classroom and being an educator?
Uh, well, I mean, this one might be kind of weird, but like, um, I mean, just the kid, like, I don't know, like elementary. I mean, there's not a day that doesn't go by that a kid doesn't give you a hug and doesn't just like show you physically, like they'll just hug you and just care about you because you care about them. And I think that I don't know, I'm just that kind of person who just really loves that that proof, like, they just they love you. I mean, you could look like a gargoyle and have one arm, and they'd be like, "Miss Bonnie, I love your nub." Like, they just love you when you love them, and I think that that's the greatest, like, honestly, that's the greatest thing, is them just caring about you because you care about them. So, uh,
Yeah.
it's a good feeling.
Yeah. Awesome. And on the other side, what to you is just again to be real and to be honest, right? What's the single worst thing about this profession, or what's the one thing that if you had a magic wand and you could just point that wand at this one thing and change it overnight, where would you point that wand?
Uh, I mean, um, I think, like, feeling like you're never enough, I think that that is the toughest thing. Um, for me, it was, I want to show up for these kids every single day, and I want to, implement the best practices, the everything. I wanna be perfect for them, and you just sometimes you can't give them everything that they need, um, or that they want. Your resources might be limited, or so that can I take it personally, right? Someone who is neurodivergent and on the spectrum, I do take those kinds of things really personally. I want to be there and to support and everything. So that can be really one of the hardest things to kind of face. And then also, someone who has grown up the way that I did, I had a lot of, trauma that I needed to kind of process too. And so it was also learning how to be trauma responsive for myself and to see when I needed to ask for help. And an example of that is like, it was really hard for me to teach like good touch, bad touch to first and second graders. And I didn't really know that it was going to be a hard thing for me until I was teaching the lesson and I had a panic attack. And so then I had to, you know, ask my colleagues, you have a group of other second grade teachers, other first grade teachers. And I had to say, I need you to teach this to my class, and I'm going to either sit in the back or I'm going to step outside. And like, I care about, I want to be their safe person, but I'm just haven't processed my own trauma yet. And so, like, knowing how to ask for help and to do those things. So that's another thing that we teach at Moreland, that these teachers, that we want to be trauma responsive, but you also have to understand you might have your own stuff. And this is where you process, you take your time, you ask for help.
Yeah. And then conversely, someone else might need help in an area that you don't have any of that trauma, and you can switch off, and um, you're never going to know unless you're willing to ask for help and also willing to offer that help. And everybody needs it.
100%.
We all need it. Like even the strongest people need it sometimes. Um, Two more really quick ones here before we wrap up. Knowing what you know now, would you still go down this teaching path and recommend it for others?
Every day. Yeah. It is
Yeah, awesome.
it's everything I wanted to be, and it has changed my life and my kids' lives, and so, yeah, I would choose it every day. I would.
Yeah, it comes through completely and how and how you're. I mean, we can tell like we can tell this is a you have found the thing that lights you up. right? And so I'm glad you have. I hope more people can find that, and hopefully, if that happens to be in the teaching field, amazing. Um, Anything else as a last words of wisdom? Anything else you think is valuable, fun, interesting, worthwhile to share, or anything that maybe you've already said, right? But it's that important. You're like, I don't want you to lose this. I want to restate this because I just think it's that important. So, any new or repeated last words of wisdom?
Yeah, yeah. I think again, get curious. When things are tough in school, when you have that one kid that you're like, God, I hope they're absent, uh, and you're gonna have those friends, right? When you have those tough friends and those tough years and those tough classes, get curious. Why? Why is this kid having this behavior? And start to pull those resources that you have and ask questions and really show up in that way for that friend. And you will be so surprised how much that means to that kid. So please just and I say don't take it personally. I say that very lightly because I take everything personally, but that behavior has nothing to do with you. And so I really want to drive home that when it's tough, just ask for support and get curious for those behaviors.
That's a great last words of wisdom. Just getting curious. And for those who were Ted Lasso fans, there's the quote of him playing on the dartboard of, don't be judgmental, be curious. And curiosity really does go a long way, especially when it's a genuine curiosity. So thank you for the phenomenal last words of wisdom, and for applying that yourself consistently in your career. And Maura, this was an awesome conversation. Thanks so much for sharing your story from uh, obviously wanted to be a teacher from when you were young. School was the safe space. 10 years in the public school system in Virginia to now teaching in Saudi Arabia. Wild experience, wild ride. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me, Spencer. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the work that you are doing. So thank you so much.
Uh, you got it. Just trying to showcase awesome teachers out there to showcase ambassadors to the profession and give people a real honest view of what's great, what's bad, what could be better, and showcase those teachers that maybe we all wish we had. So thank you so much for being one of those.